So today's video is all about breast cancer surgery. I think I was one of the lucky ones because I was told that I had to have a mastectomy, so I wasn't given a choice. So when I say breast cancer surgery, I'm just referring to a lumpectomy or a mastectomy. Some people will be told they have a choice, which is insane. It's insane that people have to make this choice. Basically, I see women all the time wondering, should I get a mastectomy instead of a lumpectomy? Surely that will increase my chances of survival. And, then they think, oh, what if I do it and it's not all gone? Or what if I do it and I regret it? Or vice versa, they choose mastectomy and then they, a year, 2 years down the line, say, I wish I didn't do that. It's not an easy or a light decision to make. Like, this is life-changing stuff we're talking about here. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the fact that if you are given the option of a lumpectomy versus a mastectomy, the fact that you've been given that option means that one is not better than the other. There is no evidence to suggest that if you get a mastectomy over a lumpectomy, that your outcomes will be better. So then you might ask, well, then why the hell am I being offered the option? Why am I not just being told to have a lumpectomy? So there's a few reasons for that. So the first thing is that if you get a lumpectomy, more than likely, you are going to have radiotherapy as well. Because there are some small risks, depending on how you look at it, small, associated with radiotherapy. If you're confused, it's like very, very, very strong X-rays, basically. Some people don't want to do that. In that case, a mastectomy might be a better option for you, but not having radiotherapy will be dependent on the testing after your mastectomy. So for whatever reason, if your margins are close or if there's nodal involvement, you could still end up having to have radiotherapy. Then just on that topic, there are certain people who may only need a lumpectomy, but they are given a mastectomy because they might have a comorbidity, like maybe lupus or another skin condition where they wouldn't be able to tolerate the radiotherapy. There can be a whole load of other reasons why you might be given the choice. The fact is that you are given the choice. And it's a tough decision to make. Cue the jelly. This one is going to represent a lumpectomy, and this one is going to represent a mastectomy. So, in your lumpectomy, an incision is made. They'll go in, so they're cutting around the tumor, but they are also cutting a margin of healthy tissue. So, that's what we're talking about when we talk about margins. So they want to make sure that when they take out this lump, that the healthy tissue around contains no cancer cells. Then you'll have clear margins and they will be confident that they got it. So they'll go in and they'll take out the tumor and the healthy tissue. They'll send that off to pathology and they'll check your margins. Your incision will be closed up and most of your breast is going to be preserved. If you do have a positive margin when that test comes back, it means that some cancer cells have been left behind. So they will have to go back in. That's called a re-excision surgery. And that happens to about 1 in 7 women. The other thing is that they might have to go in again after that. And there is a possibility that you would ultimately end up having a mastectomy. So this represents the mastectomy. I know this is a cup and it's kind of hard to explain, but let's say that this is the front. So this is where your skin is. And back here is your muscle, so your pectoral muscle. What they're going to do, so that the jelly here is the breast tissue. So what they're going to do is, and this, funnily enough, this is actually how this was explained to me by my surgeon before I had the surgery. They described it as scooping out an ice cream bucket. So they'll go in and they will remove the breast tissue from the muscle and they'll remove it from the skin. They'll take the whole lot out and send it to pathology as well, which is over here. And you're left with that. I do have another little way to demonstrate to you what's happening. Now, these are tiny because this is the type of balloon that actually needs to be blown up by a machine. So when I tried to put liquid into it, it just was not stretching. Probably should have got water balloons, but anyway, it's jelly inside as well, or jello, depending on what part of the world you come from, but there's jelly in here. This one is going to represent our lumpectomy, okay? Your incision could be made, let's pretend you have a nipple here, okay? Your incision could be made around your nipple. It could be a small little one here. It could be a small little one here. It just depends on where exactly the tumor is in your breast. Let's just pretend we can access it somewhere around here. So, you know, somewhere above your nipple, let's say like somewhere around here. So there's the incision. They'll go in with a scalpel. Like I said before, they'll cut around, they won't cut the tumor, they'll cut around the tumor with a margin of healthy tissue. And then they'll go in with some forceps and they'll take it out and send it off to pathology, okay? So then you're closed up and this is the kind of scar you might be left with. Could also be left with a circular one around your nipple. You could be left with one on the side. It really just depends on where they are in the breast. And of course, all going well, your breast is mostly conserved. With a mastectomy, it'll also depend on the type of surgery. Do you know what's in there? A Nerf bullet. I put a Nerf bullet into this one to kind of represent it being too big. I think we get it anyway. For a mastectomy, most of us have a scar right across the way and no nipple. They'll make an incision, but they'll basically be taking out everything, which leaves you with something like this. If you're offered breast conserving surgery or told all you need is the breast conserving surgery, which would be the lumpectomy, that is because the tumor's size in relation to the size of your breast is quite small. It's in a suitable place in your breast, so it wouldn't be as invasive to take it out. And it's only in one area in your breast. So I previously talked about DCIS, and if you have extensive DCIS, that will be a mastectomy. But if you have DCIS only in one spot in your breast, they can actually just remove that area. A lumpectomy can also be what we call here in Ireland an outpatient procedure. So it means where you only would be in for the day. Now, I'm not saying that that's everybody. Some people end up staying for a couple of nights. With a mastectomy, and particularly if you've had reconstruction at the same time, the recovery period is a lot longer. Reasons you might be told that you have to have a mastectomy are that the tumor is big, especially if you have smaller breasts, that the tumor is in the middle of your breast, that you have cancer in more than one place in your breast, and that there is extensive DCIS in your breast. Which is ductal carcinoma in situ, which is the calcifications, the kind of speckling of pre-invasive cancer. The other reason is if you've already had radiotherapy on your breast, then you will be given a mastectomy because you don't go for radiotherapy twice in the one place. At the time of your mastectomy, you might have a sentinel node biopsy. I actually had my sentinel node biopsy before my mastectomy. In my initial scans when I was diagnosed, cancer was found in the lymph nodes under my arm, so in the axilla. Then I had chemotherapy, and then I had the surgery. There are a lot of risks involved with having an axillary clearance, which is where they remove all of the lymph nodes from underneath your arm. To be honest, I just kind of triggered myself there. To be honest, for me, that was the most frightening part of all of the surgery, having the axillary clearance. I really didn't want to have that. So I was very lucky that I got to do it before the mastectomy, because what I was told was that either I can do the sentinel node biopsy, which I'm going to explain in a minute exactly what it is, but I was told I could do that, or I could go in, have my mastectomy, but they would do the full clearance at that time anyway. So of course I chose get the sentinel node biopsy. I just went in, it was just a day case. So what happens is beforehand that you're injected with a dye. They open it up and the dye will show them which lymph nodes are likely to drain fluid first, which is an indicator that these are the ones that carry cancer. So I think they removed 21 at that time, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go through the notes to be honest at this stage, but they did find cancer. So then I knew I had to have the axillary clearance at the time. Recovery from axillary clearance is really, really tough. It's really tough. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's absolutely horrendous. The tendons underneath your arm contract. You can't lift up your arm. You have to go to physiotherapy afterwards. There's a massive risk of lymphedema. I don't want to frighten anybody with that right now, but you know, Google it. Now, actually, after my surgery, I was treated for lymphedema, but it was actually not lymphedema, thankfully. It was just a collection of the lymph fluid, which is what lymphedema is permanently. But for me, it wasn't permanent. And every single time still that I cut a finger or anything, it's the first thing I think of. I think, is now going to be the time? Is now going to be the time? So basically, at the time of your mastectomy, you may have the sentinel node biopsy, or you may have the axillary clearance. Looking at the two options, I'm not going to tell you what I would choose. I'm not going to tell you what you should choose, but what I am going to do is just kind of say the pros and the cons. I'm going to start with cons, okay? So with the lumpectomy, okay? Genuinely, I feel like there is an element of, even though you have been told it makes no difference to survival rates and recurrence rates, whether you have a lumpectomy or a mastectomy, if you have a recurrence, you're going to probably beat yourself up about the fact that you didn't have a mastectomy. And it's not because of that, and it's not your fault. People who have had mastectomies can have recurrences in the same place. Like, it doesn't have to have been in the breast tissue. It could be on the skin. It could be in the muscle. I just feel like certain people will feel like that because it's just human nature. It's human nature. Blame yourself. Radiation will be needed afterwards unless you are an extremely low risk of recurrence, or, well, yeah, basically that. Then there's the fact that if it's sent to pathology and the margins come back positive, that you would have to go in for another surgery again. And then ultimately, if they can not get clear margins, that you could end up having a mastectomy anyway. So it's kind of like a risk of, well, not risk, I wouldn't say risk, but the possibility of multiple surgeries. The pros of having a lumpectomy are you get to keep most of your breast. The recovery is not that hard. It's far less traumatic as an experience. Now, I didn't have a lumpectomy, so I can't actually say whether it is or it isn't. I'm not saying it's not traumatic. Of course, it's traumatic to go through that. But with all of the side effects and the things that went wrong for me after having a mastectomy, and I've had a surgery on this side, which was kind of like just a day case, and like I recovered within days. The pros and cons of the mastectomy then. So cons for the mastectomy. Oh my God. The recovery is hard. My recovery was really, really hard. I was completely traumatized by the whole situation. Genuinely, it was out of chemo, the surgery and radiotherapy. The the surgery was, I even find it difficult to talk about now. I absolutely, like, I had PTSD after it. If you have a reconstruction at the time and you then have radiotherapy, it can lead to capsular contracture. So I did have a reconstruction at the time. Basically, once the mastectomy was performed, I was not flat, I was concave, because I said it in the last video, the way that my sternum is shaped, it goes inwards. So actually, even after they did the reconstruction, just because of the size of me, it was like flat, basically. But yes, an implant was put in, and actually it was put in under the muscle. So they removed everything, but then they cut the muscle and lifted it, put the implant underneath that, and put the muscle back down on it. So that was another thing to recover from. Then I had radiotherapy, and then sometime later I had capsular contracture, which is just, it's awful. I can talk about it another time maybe, but yeah, I ended up having to have another surgery to take it all out and do it again. The pros then of having mastectomy, I think that it gives you a lot of peace of mind. You feel like, right, everything's been taken away. You almost feel like saying, could you just do the same on the other side, just so I don't have to deal with any of this? With a mastectomy as well, you don't always have to have radiotherapy. I feel like I did already say that, but I did, but it was for the reason that, well, first of all, it had already spread to the lymphatic system, and my margins were not completely clear. So in some cases, you will have to have radiotherapy, but it's not the case every time. And then, wow, I'm really struggling to find pros. You don't have to do mammograms anymore. So as I said, I absolutely do not want to advise anybody on what they should or should not do. And I am aware that I had a really bad experience with my mastectomy and after my mastectomy. And so when I talk about the pros and cons, that, you know, I do make it more of a con, but you need to also just like ask yourself, why do I want to do this? And then I suppose, because I mean, when you ask yourself, why would I not? You don't know the answers yet. You don't know why you wouldn't. So I'm just kind of telling you that part. And on the other side of it, I do feel like if I had been offered a mastectomy or a lumpectomy, that I probably would have chose a mastectomy, just because despite being told that it wouldn't make a difference to recurrence rate, in my mind, I would think, no, I want it all gone. Good riddance. So just a reminder, I'm obviously not a medical professional, and, you know, I've just given you my understanding of what happens during the surgeries. Obviously, it's not in depth. Obviously, there are things that I haven't talked about in it. And I am not in a position to advise anybody or tell anybody what to do. I just talk about my own personal opinions and experiences. However, Liz O'Riordan is a breast surgeon that got breast cancer, and she makes videos here on YouTube. So you might want to head over there and have a look, because she really knows what she's talking about. And she really, as well, the other thing that she does, which I love, myth busting. You know, the way that people will come out with these crazy claims about cancer, or what causes cancer, and you can't do this, you can't do that. She will just shut that down. So yeah, so that's it. I just I've never spoken about this before, and I do really feel sorry for people who are given the choice. Like, God, sorry if I'm making you feel worse, but yeah, it's a tough decision, and I wish you the best of luck with it, and make your decision and just don't look back. There's no point looking back. Never look back. Never question things that you chose to do or anything like that, because it's not worth it. You can't change it. So anyway, Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!